It was a Tuesday morning in October, and the coffee shop was packed as usual. David sat at his corner table, sketching designs on his tablet while sipping his third cup of coffee. He came here every morning before work, finding peace in the familiar sounds of steaming milk and quiet conversations. The place had become his sanctuary, a spot where he could think clearly before facing another day at the design studio. At the table across from him, Lily was deep in her psychology textbooks, preparing for her graduate school presentation. Her laptop screen glowed with research notes about human behavior, and she had papers scattered everywhere. She'd been coming to this same coffee shop for months, drawn by the calm atmosphere and strong coffee that helped her focus during long study sessions. David stood up to refill his cup, balancing his tablet and phone in one hand while reaching for his wallet with the other. The morning rush had made him more hurried than usual, and as he turned toward the counter, disaster struck. His elbow knocked his nearly full coffee cup, sending it flying directly toward Lily's table. The hot liquid splashed across her keyboard and papers, creating a small river of coffee that threatened to reach her textbooks. Lily gasped and jumped up, watching helplessly as her morning's work became a soggy mess. "Oh no. I'm so sorry." David rushed over, grabbing napkins from the nearby counter. His face turned red with embarrassment as he realized what he'd done. "I can't believe I just did that. Please let me help clean this up." Lily looked up at him, ready to be annoyed, but something stopped her as he leaned over to help dab the coffee from her papers. She caught a scent that made her pause completely. It wasn't cologne or aftershave. It was something warmer, more natural, like cedar wood mixed with something clean and fresh. The scent seemed to wrap around her, making her feel oddly calm despite the chaos of her ruined notes. "It's okay, really," she heard herself saying, though she had planned to be upset. These things happen. She found herself moving closer to him as they worked together to clean up the mess, unconsciously breathing in that mysterious scent that seemed to make everything feel better. David noticed her unusual calmness and felt encouraged. Most people would have been furious, but she seemed almost relaxed. He continued apologizing while they worked, surprised by how comfortable he felt talking to her. Usually, he struggled with small talk, especially with strangers, but something about her presence made words come easily. "Your laptop looks okay," he said, carefully wiping around the keyboard. "But I should definitely pay for any damage, and maybe buy you a new coffee too." He glanced at her, noticing how she kept finding reasons to stay close to him during the cleanup. "That's very kind of you," Lily replied, realizing she was reluctant to step away from him. The scent seemed to be getting stronger, or maybe she was just becoming more aware of it. "I think the laptop survived, but I wouldn't say no to another coffee." As they walked to the counter together, Lily found herself studying him more closely. He seemed genuinely sorry about the accident, and there was something gentle about the way he moved. But it was that scent that kept drawing her attention. She'd never experienced anything like it before, and she couldn't understand why it was affecting her so strongly. "I'm David, by the way," he said as they waited in line. "I feel terrible about ruining your morning." "I'm Lily, and honestly, you didn't ruin anything," she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I was getting stuck on that chapter. Anyway, sometimes a little chaos is exactly what we need." David smiled at her response, feeling more relaxed than he had in weeks. There was something about her energy that made him want to keep talking, to find excuses to stay near her. "What were you studying? It looked pretty intense over there." "Psychology," Lily explained, accepting her fresh coffee from the barista. "I'm working on my graduate thesis about human behavior and attraction, specifically how people form connections in unexpected ways." "That's fascinating," David said, genuinely interested. "I'm a graphic designer, so I think about how people connect with visual things, but I never really considered the psychology behind it." They found themselves walking back to her table together, neither wanting to end the conversation. Lily gathered her damp papers while David helped organize the ones that had stayed dry. The cleanup was finished, but neither of them made any move to leave. "This might sound strange," Lily said, feeling brave, but you have a really nice scent. Is that a special cologne you're wearing? David looked puzzled. I don't wear cologne, actually. I'm kind of sensitive to most fragrances. He paused, thinking. I do make my own soap, though. It's just a hobby, but I prefer natural ingredients over store-bought stuff. You make your own soap? Lily's eyes lit up with interest. That's incredible. I've never met anyone who does that. It started as a way to save money in college. David explained, feeling pleased by her genuine curiosity. But I discovered I really enjoy experimenting with different combinations. Right now, I'm using cedar, lavender, and something called bergamot. Lily nodded, finally understanding what had captured her attention so completely. It wasn't just one scent, but a combination that somehow worked perfectly together. More importantly, it seemed to have a calming effect on her that she couldn't explain. Would you maybe want to grab dinner sometime? David asked, surprising himself with his boldness. I mean, after I destroyed your morning, it seems like the least I can do. I'd like that, Lily replied without hesitation. But not because you owe me anything. I'd genuinely like to get to know you better. They exchanged phone numbers, and David promised to text her later about dinner plans. As he gathered his things to leave for work, Lily found herself already missing that comforting scent that had made the whole morning feel different. After he left, Lily sat back down at her table, staring at her psychology textbooks with new interest. She'd been researching human attraction for months, but she'd never experienced anything quite like what had just happened. The way his scent had instantly calmed her, made her feel safe and comfortable with a complete stranger, was unlike anything she'd read about in her studies. She opened her laptop and began typing notes, not about her original research, but about this unexpected encounter. Something told her this was just the beginning of a very interesting discovery. Both professionally and personally, the coffee shop continued its busy morning rhythm around her. But Lily barely noticed. She was too busy thinking about cedar, lavender, and bergamot, and wondering if she'd ever experienced anything quite so intriguing as the scent of a stranger, who was quickly becoming much more than that. 3 days had passed since the coffee shop incident, and Lily couldn't stop thinking about David. But it wasn't just his kindness or the way he made her laugh during their brief conversation. It was something deeper, something she couldn't quite understand. Every time she remembered that moment when he leaned over to help clean up the spilled coffee, she could almost smell that amazing scent again. She found herself walking past the coffee shop twice, hoping to run into him again. This wasn't like her at all. Lily was usually focused and practical, especially when it came to her studies. But here she was, acting like a teenager with a crush, and all because of how someone smelled. That evening, she sat in her small apartment surrounded by psychology textbooks and research papers. Her laptop screen glowed with articles about human attraction, but instead of focusing on her original thesis topic, she found herself typing new search terms: scent and attraction, pheromones in humans, chemical signals between people. The more she read, the more fascinated she became. Scientists had discovered that humans could actually detect chemical signals from other people, signals that influence everything from mood to attraction. Some researchers believe that people were naturally drawn to others whose scent indicated genetic compatibility. It was like nature's way of helping people find good partners. This is incredible, she whispered to herself, scrolling through study after study. One research paper explained how certain scents could trigger the release of feel-good chemicals in the brain, creating instant feelings of comfort and safety. Another discussed how people often felt calmer and happier when exposed to scents from someone they were attracted to. Reading these studies felt like finding missing pieces of a puzzle. Everything she'd experienced with David suddenly made sense from a scientific perspective. But understanding the science didn't make her feelings any less intense or confusing. Her phone buzzed with a text message from David. Hi Lily, I hope your studies are going well. Would you like to grab dinner tomorrow evening? I know a quiet place with great food. She stared at the message, feeling her heart race. Just seeing his name on her phone screen brought back memories of that wonderful scent. She typed back quickly, I'd love to. What time works for you? The next evening, Lily changed clothes 3 times before settling on a simple dress and cardigan. She told herself it was just dinner with a new friend, but she knew she was more excited than she'd been about anything in months. David was already waiting at the restaurant when she arrived, and the moment she saw him, that familiar scent reached her again. It was like being wrapped in a warm blanket after a long, cold day. She found herself walking closer to him than necessary when they were seated, and lingering just a bit longer than normal when they hugged. "Hello. You look great," David said, pulling out her chair. "I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for inviting me," Lily replied, noticing how his scent seemed even more appealing in the smaller space of the restaurant. "I've been looking forward to this all day." As they talked over dinner, Lily found herself unconsciously leaning closer to him whenever he spoke. She was genuinely interested in what he was saying about his design work and his soap-making hobby. But she was also drawn by something deeper. Being near him felt natural and comfortable in a way she'd never experienced before. "Can I ask you something that might sound a bit strange?" she said during dessert, gathering her courage. "Of course," David replied, curious about her suddenly serious tone. "That day in the coffee shop, when you helped me clean up the spill, I noticed your scent, and I've been thinking about it ever since." She paused, feeling her cheeks warm. "I've actually been researching it for my studies. Did you know that humans can be attracted to other people based on their natural scent?" David looked surprised but interested. "Really? I had no idea that was a real thing. It's fascinating," Lily continued, feeling more confident now that she was discussing something she'd researched. "Scientists think it's connected to finding compatible partners. Some people are naturally drawn to scents that indicate genetic compatibility, or scents that make them feel calm and safe." "And you think that's what happened with us?" David asked, not seeming uncomfortable with the topic. "I think so," Lily admitted. "I know it sounds weird, but being around you makes me feel more relaxed and happy than I usually do. And it's definitely connected to your scent." David smiled thoughtfully. "You know, I've been thinking about you constantly since that day too. I kept telling myself it was just because I felt bad about spilling coffee on your work. But it's more than that. I actually look forward to our conversations in a way I don't usually experience." "Really?" Lily felt a wave of relief. "I was worried you'd think I was strange for being so interested in how you smell." "Not at all." David laughed. "It's actually kind of amazing. I've never had anyone pay attention to my soap-making experiments before. Most people think it's just a weird hobby." As they walked back to their cars after dinner, Lily found herself walking closer to David than she normally would with a friend. When they reached her car, she turned to face him, not wanting the evening to end. "I had a really wonderful time tonight," she said. "Me too," David replied, stepping closer. "Would you maybe want to do this again soon?" "I'd love that," Lily said, and when he leaned down to give her a goodbye hug, she found herself holding on just a little longer than necessary, breathing in that comforting scent that had started this whole amazing journey. As she drove home, Lily realized that all her research had helped her understand what was happening between them, but it hadn't made her feelings any less intense. If anything, knowing there was a scientific basis for their connection made it feel even more special and meaningful. She was falling for David, and it had started with something as simple and natural as the way he smelled. 2 weeks had passed since their dinner date, and Lily found herself spending almost every evening with David. What had started as occasional coffee meetings had turned into daily phone calls, weekend walks, and long conversations about everything, from his design projects to her psychology research. But there was something else happening that she hadn't expected. She was becoming more and more dependent on his presence, specifically his scent, in ways that both amazed and slightly worried her. It started innocently enough. After their third date, David had lent her his jacket when it got chilly during their evening walk. When she got home, instead of hanging it up right away, she found herself holding it close, breathing in that familiar cedar and lavender combination that made her feel so calm and secure. "This is ridiculous," she told herself, but she kept the jacket on her couch for 3 days before finally returning it. David noticed her reluctance to give it back and found it endearing rather than strange. "You can keep it longer if you want," he said with a smile. "I have others." "Are you sure?" Lily asked, feeling both grateful and slightly embarrassed by how much she wanted to say yes. "Of course," David replied. "I like knowing you have something of mine." That weekend, when David invited her to his apartment for the first time, Lily was amazed by how the entire space seemed to carry his scent. It wasn't overwhelming or artificial like a scented candle might be. Instead, it was subtle and natural, woven into the fabric of the couch, lingering in the air, making the whole place feel like a sanctuary. "Your apartment smells incredible," she said, settling onto his couch. "It's so calming." David looked pleased. "I think it's probably from the soap making. I have a little workspace in the spare bedroom where I experiment with different combinations." "Could you show me?" Lily asked, genuinely curious. David led her to a small room filled with natural ingredients, molds, and bars of soap in various stages of completion. The scent here was stronger, more complex, with hints of different oils and herbs that created an almost magical atmosphere. "This is amazing," Lily said, picking up a bar of soap that looked like the ones David used. "You're really talented at this." "Thank you," David replied, watching her handle his creations with such care. "I've been thinking about trying some new combinations, maybe something with eucalyptus or mint." As they talked about his soap-making process, Lily found herself moving closer to him, unconsciously seeking that comforting scent that had become so important to her daily well-being. David noticed but didn't mind. In fact, he was beginning to realize that her need for his presence was awakening something protective and caring in him. Over the following weeks, their relationship developed a rhythm that revolved around this unique connection. Lily would come over to study at David's apartment, claiming his place was quieter than hers, but really because being surrounded by his scent helped her focus better than she ever had before. "I don't understand it," she told her best friend during lunch one day. "I've never been the type of person who needs to be around someone all the time, but with David, it's different. His presence, his scent, it's like it regulates my whole mood." Her friend looked concerned. "That sounds intense. Are you sure it's healthy?" "I think so," Lily replied, though she'd been wondering the same thing. "I've been reading more research about it, and some scientists believe that scent-based attraction can actually be a sign of deep compatibility. It's like our bodies are telling us we're good for each other." Meanwhile, David was having his own realizations about their relationship. He'd started paying more attention to Lily's reactions to his scent, noticing how she seemed to relax whenever he was near, how she would unconsciously move closer during conversations, how she seemed genuinely happier when she was around him. One evening, while they were watching a movie at his apartment, David decided to address what they were both experiencing. "Lily, can I ask you something?" he said during a quiet moment. "Of course," she replied, looking up from where she was curled up next to him on the couch. "I've noticed that you seem to really need to be close to me. Not in a bad way," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "I actually love it. But I want to make sure you're okay with how important my scent has become to you." Lily felt her cheeks warm, but she appreciated his directness. "I've been thinking about that too. I know it might seem strange to other people, but being around you, breathing in your scent, it makes me feel more like myself than I've ever felt before." "It doesn't seem strange to me," David said gently. "I've been reading some of the research you mentioned, and I think what we have is special. But I also want to make sure I'm not taking advantage of your feelings." "You're not," Lily assured him. "If anything, I worry that I'm being too dependent on you. Sometimes I feel like I need your presence to feel completely calm and happy." "David, consider this carefully. What if we think of it differently? What if instead of seeing it as dependence, we see it as a unique way of connecting? Some people connect through shared interests or physical attraction. We connect through scent and presence." "I like that perspective," Lily said, feeling relieved. "It makes it seem less like a problem and more like a gift." "That's exactly what I think it is," David replied, "and honestly, knowing that I can make You feel calm and happy just by being myself. It makes me feel needed in a way I've never experienced before." As they continued talking, David realized he was becoming just as dependent on Lily's need for him as she was on his scent. Her contentment in his presence made him feel purposeful and valued in a way that went beyond anything he'd experienced. "In previous relationships, I have an idea," David said suddenly. "What if I made some special soaps just for you? I could create scents that you love, and you could have them even when we're not together." Lily's eyes lit up. "You would do that?" "I would love to," David replied. "It would be like creating something unique just for us." That night, as Lily reluctantly prepared to go home, she realized their relationship had reached a new level of intimacy and understanding. They had acknowledged their unusual connection, accepted it, and found ways to make it work for both of them. More importantly, they had discovered that what made them different also made them perfect for each other. 3 months into their relationship, Lily and David thought they had everything figured out. They had found their rhythm, understood their unique connection, and were happier than either had ever been. But as the holidays approached, they were about to face their first real test. "I'm excited for you to meet my family," Lily said as they drove to her parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner. "They're going to love you." David squeezed her hand, feeling nervous but optimistic. "I hope so. I brought some of my homemade soaps as gifts. Your mom mentioned she likes natural products." What David didn't know was that Lily had been carrying one of his shirts in her purse for the past week. She'd started doing this whenever they were apart for more than a few hours, finding that having his scent nearby helped her feel more confident and relaxed during stressful situations like exams or presentations. The dinner started well enough. Lily's parents were polite and welcoming, asking David about his work and his interests. But as the evening progressed, Lily's mother noticed something unusual about her daughter's behavior. "Lily, honey, you keep sitting so close to David." Her mother whispered during a quiet moment in the kitchen. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, Mom," Lily replied. But she realized she had been unconsciously positioning herself as close to David as possible throughout the meal, even when it wasn't entirely natural. Later that evening, as they were saying goodbye, Lily's father pulled David aside. "You seem like a good young man," he said carefully, "but I'm concerned about how attached Lily seems to be to you. She's usually much more independent." David felt a knot form in his stomach. "I care about her very much, sir. I would never want to hurt her or make her dependent on me." "I'm sure you wouldn't," her father replied. "But maybe you should think about whether this relationship is healthy for both of you." The drive home was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Lily spoke up. "My parents think I'm too attached to you, don't they? They're just worried about you." David said gently, "Maybe they have a point. I've been thinking about it too." "What do you mean?" Lily asked, feeling a wave of anxiety. "I love how much you enjoy being around me," David explained. "But I don't want to be responsible for your happiness in a way that's not healthy. What if something happened to me? What if I had to travel for work? Would you be okay?" Lily considered his words, feeling uncomfortable with the questions he was raising. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never really thought about it." The next week, David's boss announced that he would need to attend a design conference in another city for 4 days. It would be the longest they'd been apart since they started dating, and Lily's reaction surprised them both. "4 days," she said, feeling panic rising in her chest. "But what if I need? What if I can't?" "What if you can't what?" David asked gently. "What if I can't focus on my studies without you here? What if I can't sleep properly?" Lily's voice was getting higher as she spoke. "I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know how to be away from you for that long." David pulled her close, letting her breathe in his scent until she calmed down. But internally, he was worried. Her reaction seemed more intense than what they'd experienced before, and he wondered if they had let their unique connection become something unhealthy. "Maybe we should talk to someone about this," he suggested carefully. "Not because there's anything wrong with us, but because we want to make sure we're building something that's good for both of us in the long run." Lily's first instinct was to resist. She didn't want anyone to tell her that her feelings for David were wrong or problematic. But she also recognized that her reaction to his upcoming trip was more intense than she was comfortable with. "You mean like a counselor?" she asked. "Maybe a couples therapist," David replied. "Someone who can help us understand whether what we have is healthy, and if not, how we can make it better." The idea of therapy felt scary to Lily, but she agreed because she trusted David and wanted their relationship to work. They found a therapist who specialized in relationships and attachment, and during their first session, they tried to explain their unique connection. "It's hard to describe," Lily said, fidgeting with her hands. "It's not just that I like being around him. It's like his presence, his scent. It regulates my emotions in a way I've never experienced before." The therapist listened carefully, asking questions about how their relationship functioned day to day and how they felt when they were apart. "What you're describing sounds like a form of co-regulation," the therapist explained. "Some people naturally help each other feel calm and balanced, but it becomes problematic when one person can't function well without the other." Over the following weeks, they worked together to understand the difference between healthy attachment and unhealthy dependence. The therapist helped Lily develop coping strategies for when David wasn't available, and helped David understand how to support Lily without enabling behavior that wasn't good for her. "I don't want to lose what makes our relationship special," Lily said during one session, "but I also don't want to be the kind of person who can't handle being alone." "You don't have to choose between those things," the therapist assured her. "You can maintain your special connection while also building your individual strength." David learned that his protective instincts, while sweet, sometimes prevented Lily from developing her own coping skills. "I want to take care of her," he admitted, "but I realized that always being available might not actually be helping her grow." The work wasn't easy. When David finally went on his business trip, Lily struggled the first 2 days. She found herself checking her phone constantly, feeling anxious and unsettled. But she also discovered that she was stronger than she'd thought. She used the coping strategies she'd learned in therapy, stayed busy with her studies, and found ways to feel calm and centered even without David's physical presence. "I miss you terribly," she told him when he returned. "But I also proved to myself that I can handle being apart from you." David felt proud of her progress, but he also realized something important about himself. "I miss you too," he said. "But I also realized that I was depending on your need for me to feel valuable in our relationship. I need to work on that." Their relationship was changing, but they were both committed to making it healthier and stronger. They had learned that their special connection didn't have to be a weakness, but they needed to balance it with individual growth and independence. The challenges had been difficult, but they were making their bond even more meaningful. 1 year later, Lily stood in the kitchen of the apartment she and David now shared, watching him carefully mix essential oils for a new batch of soap. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, and she could smell the gentle combination of lavender and cedar that had become such an important part of her life. "How does this smell?" David asked, holding up a small test bar for her to try. Lily breathed in the scent and smiled. "Perfect. Your customers are going to love this one." David's soap making had evolved from a simple hobby into a small but successful business. Word had spread about his natural, handcrafted products, and he now had a steady stream of customers who appreciated the quality and care he put into each bar. Lily had helped him set up an online store and manage the business side of things, turning their shared passion into something that supported them both. "I still can't believe people are willing to pay for something I used to just make for fun," David said, wrapping the finished soaps in tissue paper. "You're creating something beautiful and useful," Lily replied, moving to stand beside him. "And you're helping people feel good about themselves. That's worth paying for." The year had brought many changes to their relationship. After months of therapy, they had learned to balance their unique connection with healthy independence. Lily could now spend days away from David without feeling anxious, and David had learned to support her growth without trying to solve all her problems for her. But their special bond remained as strong as ever. If anything, It had become more meaningful because they had chosen to nurture it rather than simply depending on it. "I have something to tell you," Lily said, settling onto the couch with a cup of tea. "I finally finished my thesis." "That's amazing," David said, joining her on the couch. "What did you end up focusing on?" "Unconventional forms of human attraction and how they can lead to healthy, lasting relationships," Lily replied with a smile. "I used our story as one of the case studies, with your permission, of course." David looked surprised and pleased. "Really? What did you conclude?" "That connections like ours are actually more common than people think," Lily explained. "Many people form strong bonds through sensory experiences, shared activities, or other non-traditional means. The key is learning to nurture these connections in healthy ways." "I love that you turned our experience into something that could help other people," David said, pulling her closer. "My advisor wants me to present the research at a conference next month," Lily continued, "and I've been thinking about writing a book about it. There are so many people who feel like their relationships are weird or wrong because they don't fit traditional patterns." David felt proud of how Lily had transformed their personal journey into something that could benefit others. "You should definitely write that book. You have a unique perspective that could really help people." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Lily's parents had started visiting more regularly, and her mother had become one of David's biggest supporters after seeing how happy and healthy their relationship had become. "I brought you some herbs from my garden," Lily's mother said, handing David a basket of fresh lavender and rosemary. "I thought you might like to try them in your soaps." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen," David replied. "These smell incredible." "I also wanted to apologize," she continued, looking a bit embarrassed. "I was worried about you two at first because your relationship seemed so intense, but I can see now that you've found something really special." "We had to learn how to make it work," Lily explained. "It wasn't always easy, but we figured it out together." After her parents left, Lily and David decided to take a walk to the coffee shop where they had first met. It had become a tradition for them to visit the place that had started their story, especially when they had something important to celebrate. "It's hard to believe it's been a year since I spilled coffee all over your laptop," David said as they walked hand in hand. "Best accident that ever happened to me," Lily replied, squeezing his hand. As they sat at the same table where they'd first talked, Lily reflected on how much they had both grown. She had learned to trust her instincts about what felt right in relationships, even when it didn't match what other people expected. David had discovered that he could be supportive and caring without losing his own identity in the process. "I have something for you," David said, pulling a small wrap package from his pocket. Lily opened it to find a beautiful bar of soap, but this one was different from any he made before. It was shaped like a heart and infused with a scent that was somehow both familiar and completely new. "It's a combination of all the scents that remind me of you," David explained. "Vanilla, because you always smell like the cookies you bake when you're stressed. A hint of coffee, because of this place where we met. And something floral, because you always have flowers in our apartment." Lily held the soap close, breathing in the complex scent that somehow captured their entire relationship. "It's perfect," she whispered. "I wanted you to have something that would remind you of us, even when we're apart." David continued, "Not because you need it to feel okay, but because our connection is worth celebrating." "I love it," Lily said, feeling tears of happiness in her eyes, "and I love how far we've come together." As they walked home, Lily realized that their story had become something beautiful not because it was easy, but because they had been willing to work for it. They had faced challenges, questioned themselves, and grown as individuals while maintaining the special connection that had brought them together. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't spilled that coffee?" Lily asked as they reached their apartment building. "Sometimes," David admitted, "but I think we would have found each other eventually. Some connections are too strong to ignore." "I think so too," Lily agreed. "We were meant to find each other, even if it happened in the most unexpected way." That night, as they settled into bed, Lily reflected on how their relationship had evolved. They still cherished their unique connection, but they had learned to see it as one beautiful aspect of a much larger love story. David's scent still comforted her, still made her feel safe and happy. But now she also found comfort in his laugh, his thoughtfulness, his dedication to his craft, and the way he supported her dreams. Their bond had grown from something based purely on attraction into something deeper and more lasting. "Thank you," she whispered in the darkness. "For what?" David asked softly. "For being patient with me while I learn how to love you in a healthy way," Lily replied. "For showing me that our connection was worth fighting for. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't have to look like everyone else's to be real and meaningful," David responded, pulling her close as they drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the gentle scent of cedar and lavender. They both knew they had found something rare and precious. Their love story might have started with an addiction to scent, but it had grown into something much more beautiful, a partnership based on acceptance, growth, and the courage to be exactly who they were meant to be together.